Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 100.
100, really?
100
Oh, my goodness.
of Brewing with Jim.
That means about 30 minutes each, approximately.
Yeah, so 50
we
hours.
have sat here and talked for 50 hours to each other,
Wow.
to all these people who listen.
It's amazing.
Okay.
It's quite the accomplishment.
Well,
We don't have to wax on about it, but that's...
No, but it's been...
Let's take a moment
It's
and
a
just be like,
pleasure.
wow.
It is
Yeah.
a pleasure
It is.
for me. I look forward to being here. I like being here. And I think that we're probably doing some good.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a show, for those that don't know. First of all, my name is Joseph. This is
Joseph.
Jim.
I'm Jim.
This is a show where we get audience questions, and we seek to provide answers or wisdom or just kind of insight about what our audience is thinking about any part of life. Today's question for us, Jim, from the perspective of a parent, how do you set rules for your children without being too strict?
I would have to guess that's from a perspective of a parent.
I would think so. I think so.
The child wouldn't be asking that kind of a question.
And if it were a teacher, they would say probably students and not your children.
I think there's not a protocol or procedure for doing that. There's some guidelines, but it depends upon the child. And if a couple of parents have sired more than one child, they know that the personalities are going to be very different.
Sure.
And their responses to obedience are going to be different.
That's right.
Their perception of what is good for me, whether it feels good or matches my desires or not, is going to be different.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there are rules, of course. You don't run into the street.
Yeah.
You have to, and those are for protection.
Yeah, that's true.
There are rules that I think should be enforced strictly. So I wouldn't bow to the
That's a good point,
condition that is here. There's nothing wrong. You say strict like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
When I was in the military, we would go through, I was unusual in that I was enlisted for a short period of time before I became an officer.
Sure.
So I went to boot camp and I went to officer training school, officer candidate school in Rhode Island. Well, when you get there, the rules and of behavior and how you fold your clothes and how you stand and where your eyes are trained and so forth are enormously strictly enforced.
Yeah.
And the idea is in my head, and not so much in my head, but at the head of some of the people, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. Sure. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Fast forward, here I am on the bridge of a ship, and I am giving orders to the people on the bridge of the ship.
Yeah.
And it's right standard rudder, and that you don't wait for the helmsman to say, I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Do you think we should go right? Do you think we shouldn't go right?
That's a good question.
Because the disobedience and the rebellion against that rule will cause death.
Yes.
And that's true with kids, too. You don't run in the street.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, don't go on the street side of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be there. And then, of course, as the child grows, the rules change.
That's right.
Because you're not going to wear that out the front door in this house.
I love, I'll let you continue, but
No, that's fine.
Just to highlight
Jump in.
two things that you've said there already that I think are just gems as we approach this question. Number one, strictness is not inherently a bad thing.
Correct.
It's this. The question is worded as if it is, and as
because
said,
it says without being strict.
Exactly.
That's not desirable.
Yeah, that's right. The second thing that you said that I think is really appropriate is that different actions or different sort of categories of behavior require maybe different levels of strictness
Because of the safety. and
yes,
the protection
100%.
for not only the child, but all the other
Yes.
people who would be affected if the child does run into the street.
That's right.
And just picture the complexity of what kind of accident could happen there.
Yes.
And people slamming their brakes on and others running into the rear. And so,
Yeah.
strict is good.
It is.
Strict is good.
Yeah.
However, there are guidelines that we have in the house.
Yes.
And the guidelines could be table manners. For
Sure.
example, I think it's important to teach a child correct table manners.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have to use the correct table manners all the time?
Mm-hmm.
No, not really. I don't know. How, listeners,
Sure.
do you eat when you're the only one in the house?
This is coming from a man that puts potato chips on his shirt.
Oh, you have to bring that up. There is, I continue that behavior and think of you in a negative way every time I.
Good.
Okay. It's important in my mind and in my world view, if you will,
Yes.
my family view, that my kids learn correct table manners.
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
think it's going to help them in the future when they're sitting at a state dinner at the White House and they
Sure.
don't know which fork to use. Okay.
Sure.
That's a guideline.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be strict at dinner
That's right.
about that. I think, to change the topic, I think correct grammar is important for a child to learn.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to correct grammar every single time a child
yeah.
talks to me, because then he will quit talking to me.
Sure.
And
It's
so
true.
that's not good.
That's right.
So let's decide which rules are to be strictly enforced. And I don't know if we have to iterate that or not,
No.
but it's going to
Yeah.
be protection. It's
That's
going to
right.
be safety. It's going to be,
Yeah.
and then it's going to be obedience to the law. No, we're in this store, but you don't pick that candy up and put it in your pocket and walk out without paying for it.
Absolutely.
That's going to be strictly enforced.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I love too. We talked about how some things are more strict than others. This also scales with the child's age.
Of course it does.
Obviously.
Yes.
And I think acknowledging that is great. I've got at home a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. You mentioned, I kind of just laughed in my head when you mentioned about grammar, because my 2-year-old is learning so many words. And of course, every sentence he says is filled with grammatical errors.
And that's fine.
And it's perfect. It's, of course I'm not going to say, excuse me, you used the wrong verb tense, or you don't have subject-verb agreement. Yeah,
no.
That comes with
I
age.
have in the past, and am currently working with parents who have a deaf child, and the child is young, prelingual, really,
Yeah.
learning to speak, learning to put a language together. Well, we're learning sign language, and I teach the parents sign language so they can work with the kids, and they learn sign language from a variety of sources at the moment. But nevertheless, my guidance for them is how whatever he signs, accept it. It's good enough.
Yeah.
And whatever you sign should be correct. So, but whatever the child signs, it's fine.
Yeah.
And he can correct his signs, grammar,
Yeah.
later in life. He will.
Refine that over time. Yeah.
Now, if we're a senior in high school and the grammar's still bad, that's an issue. If or the signing is still bad, that's an issue.
That makes sense.
There are times, of course, when using bad grammar is okay.
Sure.
Using bad grammar is okay if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And there are reasons. We're a little off topic here,
Sure.
but there are reasons that I would strictly enforce the rules of grammar, because refined language, refined English, if you will, has two benefits. One is clarity. That thought that you are trying to convey from your mind to another person's mind needs to be conveyed clearly so they understand. Syntax and grammar will do that.
Absolutely.
And the other is credibility. If you sound like you're uneducated, it's likely the other person will think you don't know what you're talking about, so the content of what you're saying is questionable, right or wrong. And it's wrong, but it does happen. So there is the reason that's in. Then the child learns to drive. Are we going to be strict about the rules of the road? Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to learn to do this correctly.
Yeah.
And as an aside, I'm not sure a parent should teach their own child to drive.
Sure.
There's a problem there.
Yeah. The child has 16 years of experience of watching you drive as well. So that does have, they might have something to say about rules that you want to enforce upon their driving.
So we've got rules so far in two categories.
Yeah.
One is for safety and protection.
Mm-hmm.
Another is for obeying the law of the land so you don't have to suffer consequences.
Yeah. I think a good way to bring this back to like the heart of this question, I'm imagining putting myself in the shoes of the question asker, and it seems intuitive to me that they might be talking about adolescent children.
Okay.
And let's just run with that assumption for a minute, because this is not a thing I have experience with. Like I said, my kids are 2 and less than 1.
Well, you will.
I will, for sure. I know plenty of people that have adolescent children or that have had adolescent children talk about this is perhaps the hardest age of parenthood/childhood, because they are growing way smarter than they've ever been, way more independent. They have their own opinions. They have their own agendas. They have their own friend groups now. They in ways that are healthy and sometimes perhaps unhealthy, they are growing away from you. And still, some limits need to be set. Some of them need to be strict even.
Yes.
But that's where I think a lot more gray area comes into
Well, it's
effect.
a gray area because it's the job of the adolescent and the parent assisting that the adolescent grow independent of the parents.
That's right.
And the father, who is generally the enforcer of the rule, but not always. It's shared with mom and dad, but the heavy boot in the derriere usually comes from the father. And the father's job is to make the child less dependent upon the Father and more dependent on the Heavenly Father.
Yeah.
Those need to go in tandem. They parallel each other.
Yeah.
Until the child is an adult, moves out, is financially independent, and is no longer looking for the father, the earthly biological father, to be the protocol setter and the rule enforcer, and even rule creator.
Yeah.
That's over. Well, that process is really difficult.
Yeah.
Forever, the teenager, the adolescent, will try to become independent of the father and the mother by rebelling against their values. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, and it's okay to rebel against some of the values. I don't like your music,
sure.
The father and mother say.
Yeah. I
don't like this music is terrible. When are we going to go back to understandable lyrics like when I was a kid?
Sure.
And I don't like the way that you're dressing, sure. And the way I know it's popular and this is fashion, but you're not going to look like that when you walk out of my front door. Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are relatively healthy ways to rebel. If those ways are not allowed to rebel, the teenager will historically rebel against greater values. Yeah. I'm not going to church anymore.
Sure.
I'm giving up all these rules in the church and what you value there. I am not going to continue with this savings account. I want to spend the money I get. You see how that works?
Absolutely.
Well, keeping that balance is the parents' job to do in wisdom.
Huge responsibility.
And I don't have rules for this.
Yeah.
I don't have, and I don't want rules for this.
That's right.
There are protocols, but now you start to look at the child, and I want to assess your personality, your maturity, your sense of responsibility, and so forth.
That's right.
And as you earn. As you are manifesting greater maturity to me, then this will relax and relax and relax. I don't want you to become independent of me. in relationship. I want to love you, and I want you to love me.
That's right.
Until one of us is gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we've really arrived at the heart of this question. Again, the question being, how do we set rules for our kids without being too strict? When it comes to the stuff like music or fashion, the things that are really on the periphery of importance, if we're being honest, this is where strict as a label can perhaps be detrimental to the relationship.
Yes.
Right. And so this is where I really feel the question asker's heart, I think, behind this question. It's fascinating to consider, and it's not a thing that I particularly, again, have answers or experience with. But I am drawn to, again, still, even when your kid is 18 years old or however old, there are still things that are strictly enforced. Some things that maybe that list gets smaller over time.
It does get smaller over time. The father I think the tendency of the father, I am one.
Yes.
And I raised two boys.
Yeah.
Twice, it seemed. I had to, and they did run through my mind. When I was a teenager once. I was your age once.
Yeah.
And now let me just recall all the wise decisions I made. Oh, wait, there weren't any. I made enough bad decisions that I could probably fall into the rationale, they're just being boys.
Sure.
They're just being boys, we never raised girls. We never had a girl. We wanted one. That didn't happen. But I have seen fathers of girls who are really strict. You're not dating until you're 40. You're not going to you're not going out with him.
Yeah.
And I want to do a complete financial and psychological workup before you go out with anybody.
Absolutely.
And no motorcycles and no vans, and you're going to be home at 8:00. And okay, that's the father's tendency.
Yeah.
I think to be a little more lenient with the boys, but now we have all sorts of societal conditions, environments, problems that we have to guard against. What about drugs?
Yeah,
drugs are flowing like Niagara Falls all over this country.
Yeah,
and and this is, I'm told, can be introduced to a child as early as second grade or third grade. That they have these tendencies.
Sure, depending on the environment.
And then we have people who are seem to have no moral compass at all. Sure. And it's just natural for a boy to want to go out and have sex with a lot of different people, and just make sure you're not caught, or make sure that that to me is. I'm a conservative in a lot of areas, and said no, you don't do that.
Yeah,
there are benefits. Maybe God knows what he's talking about when he says you save yourself till marriage, because it's an expression, a manifestation of love and procreation.
Absolutely.
It's not just to go out and get off.
And have fun, no, I agree with all that. I agree with that. That's what those are specifically like two categories that I was thinking of when I said, even if your kid is 18 years old, okay, give them the music, give them the fashion, whatever. But when it comes to drugs, like, I'm not going to just let you take drugs in my house now because you're 18, right? Like, strictness is still required depending on the situation, certainly.
It does. Yeah. And I can remember that my parents didn't agree about the decisions of what we're going to do with little Jimmy here. I grew up in Texas, and we got our driver's licenses when we were 14 years old. That you had to take behind the wheel, behind the desk, driver ed in junior high school, and then we got our driver's licenses, and I was glad to have mine. I got the permit, and there is an aside to this. I think I was driving on the streets before we got the driver's license. But I wanted one time when I was I think I was 15 years old. My friend and I wanted to drive from Lubbock, Texas to Dallas to see a football game in Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm 15. And it's 350 miles, 360 miles. And my mother said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And my dad, let's talk.
Yeah.
And it ended up that I was given permission to do that, and we did that.
Yeah.
And so it requires the strictness and the enforcement of the rules by a parent requires the agreement of two parents.
Yes.
It's okay if the two parents disagree behind closed doors, but when they come out, it needs to be one voice
Unified.
and one decision.
Yep.
And so there's part of the...
I also think there's a great bit of wisdom in that story. Not to say that your mom was right or your dad was right, but just with the decision to let a 15-year-old go to Dallas, there's something...
Drive to.
Yeah. There's something to be said that I think is really healthy about trust, like putting trust in your kids to say, okay, I'm going to allow this. Here are my expectations, and I expect you to meet them. And let that, because the kid's going to be happy they get to go. The kid's going to be grateful to you that they get to go.
Uh-huh.
And for all you know, they're going to meet all your expectations, follow all the rules, and be fine. And you're both going to be better for it. That relationship will be better for it.
Yes.
As opposed to you, no, forever.
Well, I'm going to protect you
until they move out.
Against all things.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. You have to have a layer of trust in your kid at some point.
Right.
And that gets reciprocated.
But in some areas, don't you think the kids are not trustworthy?
Totally.
They can't be trustworthy.
Absolutely.
They don't have the maturity.
Absolutely.
The frontal cortex is...
If you had not displayed to your father or to your parents collectively by that time that you were capable of driving yourself to Dallas, this is such a funny, preposterous distance, then no, they would have said no, and they should have said no. But
well,
they
I
didn't.
had given some indication of my maturity. I think I was required to be older, be an adult most of my kid's life. That's why I'm a kid now.
Yeah.
And I had a job working in the underwriting department of an insurance company when I was 14.
Wow.
Yes. Now, I wasn't making underwriting decisions about policies, but
I hope not.
But my job was to sit and compare the insurance application driver violation list with what the DMV in Texas had said, and then I would write "does not concur" if it didn't, and that was that big job. But hey, I was working. I was 14 years old. I wasn't bagging groceries. Nothing wrong with that. My friends were all bagging groceries, but I was. That required some maturity. I mean, I couldn't run around and pop balloons and scream and so forth in the underwriting department of an insurance company, and I complied. Now, my father was the executive vice president of the company. That may have had something to do with my...
might have been some slight nepotism.
My vetting there. But your point that has this offspring, precious little darling, shown me some maturity that I would allow an independence in one particular area over here.
Yeah.
And so I can't. Wise. I don't have a rule on how strict you are there.
Of course, yeah. That may even be itself a good place to wrap up this question. Okay. I think there's a lot, like you mentioned, I think even at the top, every kid is different.
Yes.
Every parent is different. Yes. Even within families, each child is different.
Right.
This is something that a podcast cannot give you an answer to that is fully, vacuum fit over your situation.
Well, but thank you for the question.
It's a wonderful question.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have asked it either. I'm just saying everything that has been said needs to now be adapted to your family.
Yes.
And your context.
And you're asking the question, whoever you are, indicates that you care for your
100%.
Child.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for that question.
Okay.
It's a great question. Let's jump to our second segment. This is always a question that you don't know ahead of time. And
I didn't know that one ahead of time. The one about the strict.
It's the We'll talk.
We should change the name of this to Off the Cuff.
There you go. The whole podcast should be called Surprise Jim.
Just right. In a way.
Here's the second.
Okay, what
segment.
is it?
In honor of our 100th episode.
Oh my.
I want to ask you kind of maybe a two-part question. Part one is, can you just reflect on this whole journey of Brewing with Jim, 100 episodes, and how has it been, and what have you thought? And then the second part of it, which I think is kind of fun, is if you could give yourself any advice for when you started the podcast, when the podcast began,
yes,
or just before it began, if you could give that version of yourself any advice about recording and making this show.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I definitely could do that.
Yeah. What would you say?
First part?
The first part is this general reflection over this podcast that we've made.
We started the podcast. This was something that came into my mind because I was answering questions. I was inviting questions in one of the classes. It wasn't really a class. We called them mentor groups or something.
It's like small groups of students.
They were small groups of students, and they were all teachers had all these small groups, and everybody in the class, they were not co-ed. They were all. I had all guys, and I had junior and high school guys, and I gave them each a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper and said, write down, don't put your name on it, I don't need your name, put down 5 topics you would like to hear discussed in here. And I purposely worded it that way so that they would not think that, oh, this is my question and you have to address me. Just topics you'd like to hear discussed. When I picked those up, we had enough topics to last 1.5 years. And that became a very popular mentor group. And when they went on to senior high, become seniors, then I went on. Okay, they eventually went away, and I got a new group. And then the school decided to change the format of the group, and I told the school I don't want to do this. I don't want this format anymore. I want what I had, and that's not going to be the protocol of the school. And so I said, I think I need a bigger audience to answer these questions. That's how this thing started. That's how this podcast started. All right. Has it been, I don't know how to measure success. Success is measured by numbers always. But there is value in what we have done here, what you and I have done, what Grady
I was just going to mention Grady.
Grady
the original.
The original co-host. The goof who came up with the name of this podcast. I've never really cared for it,
but blame that on him.
Nevertheless, this has been a podcast of value, and the content has been valuable. The value in it, I will attribute to God's word, because most of the wisdom that comes out of here is from His word. Occasionally it's experiential, but the experiential part of this wisdom has been the negative part. I would never do this again. I would, like we were just talking about when I was a teenager and so forth. I think that that what we are doing is good. I think one of the problems that we have is marketing. We don't market this at all in any way. And marketing is essential if you want larger listener numbers. And I don't know anything about marketing, and that's not really what we do here at the school. But if we had marketing, I think this thing would skyrocket in numbers. Okay, that's that part. What do we do to what do we do to improve, or how do we
so my question was, if you today could give advice to episode 1 version of you.
Yes, I would. Well, you know what we do. You listen to the podcast as it drops, and I listen to it, but we don't listen to it together.
That's right.
We listen to it independently. There may be some benefit in listening together, but
interesting.
We hear ourselves, and we talk about things like pause placement, or this concept was not concluded clearly, or this sentence was down a rabbit hole and it never was brought back. And we think about things like that.
Yeah.
And so all that advice, I've learned a lot. Now, I've been speaking in front of people for decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a little different than you and I exchanging thoughts into two microphones here.
That's right.
But I have learned a lot from you, and I think you've learned a couple of things from me.
Absolutely.
And we have learned to make this more smooth.
Yeah, it's
to
more
do this
natural.
more smoothly.
Yeah.
We do fault every once in a while, and we do that. We have the luxury of stopping and starting over.
Deleting,
Yeah, that's the electronic
That's right.
luxury. But I think that my advice would be, the best advice was from you to me, and that was don't prep before you come in here. And because in the beginning, I would come in with a clipboard, a bunch of notes, and we don't do that
bulleted
anymore.
lists.
Today, we discussed a topic, and I didn't know it was there. It was available to me. I can go online and see all these questions. But that's advice that you gave me, and that was good advice.
I think, it's helped it be more like free-flowing and more natural as a result.
Well, it's more free-flowing and natural, and that has a benefit of being easier to listen to. It also has a liability of going down rabbit trails and losing the attention of the listener because it's too difficult to follow. We do that. But we talk about these things.
We could also lose the interest. My opinion at the time and still is that we could be losing the interest of the audience by being too formatted. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can lose the interest of an audience in 100 different ways.
Well, if you want a sermon, go to church.
Sure.
Those are usually prepped.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
There's the idea that, the Holy Spirit will guide me. Well, the Holy Spirit is just as busy in preparation as he is in presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it's a wonderful way.
Is that an okay answer?
No, it's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good place to wrap up our episode anyway. So we now have 100 episodes in the books.
Oh my.
That is something.
We should go have a soda pop.
We should go toast. Yeah. We want to thank our audience. After episode 100 especially, we want to really thank our audience. This is only a thing because you listen and because you submit questions.
Absolutely.
We are always courting questions from you, and we want to put that out here again. If you have a question that you would like to ask us, or if you would just like to reach out at all, we would love for you to email us at brewingwithjim@gmail.com.
That's it.
Send us anything you've got, a question, a story. Tell us where you're listening from or how you heard about the show.
Yes.
It's brewingwithjim@gmail.com.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you to our audience.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The topics that are covered and the answers that are offered during episodes of Brewing with Jim are designed to mine the wisdom attained from a life of pastoral ministry and care. They do not constitute professional or clinical training or expertise in the areas of counseling or mental health. CVCS and its podcast network want to provide a platform for the discipleship of our community. Brewing with Jim is our attempt to foster that environment in a format that is accessible for everyone to participate in. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed during the show are the speaker's own, and they may or may not represent the views, thoughts, or opinions of Capistrano Valley Christian Schools or its faculty. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK through 12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.